Welcome everyone to another episode of Life Inspirations with Rue and Raz.
Yep. Hi, guys.
So we're going to continue on. Last time we talked about marriage red flags. We're going to continue with the marriage red flags. And once again, this is not all the red flags, but it's stuff for you to start to consider if you're seeing some of these things in your marriage that you need to stop, take a breather and address them before they become bigger things that you can't come back from.
Yeah.
So one other red flag that I'm going to talk about, that one is a big one, is using the divorce word. Or if you find yourself in a place where you are fantasizing about being in a divorce or what life is like if you're single or how it would look like if you were single, that's red flags, because if you start to see it in your mind, it's the power of the mind. You start to see it, you start to sow it.
Yeah.
Even in your own behaviors and the way that you behave, you start to sow the things that you've already seen in your mind, you know, and the power of life and death is in the tongue. When God created the world, he created it by speaking and it became life. So anything, and God has created us to be creative beings. So anything that you speak, you can and will become. So certain ideas and thoughts, you must not allow them or give them time. No matter what kind of challenges you're facing, it should be a no-go area. You know, if you get the time to talk about people that end up separated or in divorce, and if you were to have an honest conversation with them, they would probably tell you either they got into it already having a plan of, if things go wrong, what's the exit strategy.
Escape close.
Or they just never left that idea of what life could be like if they were single. So never give the divorce idea or the single life idea a chance or room in your conversations. Even when you fight, never threaten to leave, because now you've just sown it into the atmosphere to become something. Never threaten to leave. Never throw that word out there. Instead, think about how to build. How do you move on from here? It doesn't matter how difficult it gets. How do we fix it? Because then when you have that positive mindset, then you can move towards fixing it. You can move further away from separating and towards building something and fixing it. And also try not to hang around conversations with people that are constantly talking about leaving and divorce and family breakdowns and negative talk about marriage. We've got to tramp that. You know, everyone just wants to talk about negative things about marriage, and that sows seeds that make it justifiable for you to leave when you didn't need to leave and you actually needed to stay and work it out. And once again, we'll put in the clause. We're not talking about abusive situations. We're not talking about, I'm sure by now we know, we're not talking about those other situations where you need to get out of it to save your life. But situations where, you know, you just feel like this is just uncomfortable and I could be much more comfortable if I was single, you know?
I'll just add that what you touched on is something that I'm very passionate about talking about, which is the the condition of your heart. So, like you said, life and death is in the power of the tongue. But I think before that, the Bible also says that from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So whatever that you ends up coming out of your mouth has been stored up in your heart and digested, and the fact that you're allowing such into your heart, to store it up, to think about it, to meditate upon it until it comes out of your mouth as a spoken word, it means that the condition that your heart is in is actually is not in a good shape. And the causes of your condition of your heart being in a bad state could be a lot of things. Some of the things that you've spoken about, some of the things we spoke about in our previous video, talking bad about your partner, not putting your partner in the right priority of how it's supposed to be from a godly perspective on marriage and life. So for me, it's just, the Bible also says, guard your heart jealously, because from it flows the fountains of life, right? So it's a matter of the heart. But going back to that as a red flag, the moment you start using the D word or the divorce word as a stick or as a way to, I don't know, threaten or put your partner in
manipulate a situation.
and whatever. You have already walked it. You've already announced it into your in your from your mouth, and you've put it out, and words have got power, and you are the one that is actually you are creating an environment for that. So that's a word that does not exist in our vocabulary. That's a word that has never existed in fortunately for me in my parents' vocabulary. So it's something that I'm never going to use, something that I'm not interested in even finding out what that means. And I try and keep my heart and my mind clean from such thoughts, right? So I've heard of people that say when a thought gets into their head, they actually expressly saying, "Get away from me, devil." That is a word where I'm willing to say, "Get away from me, devil," because that cannot be from God. But just to move onto the red flags, the one that came to me, and it's very I think it's very important, is when you start finding yourself having an unhealthy relationship with friends of the opposite sex. Unhealthy relationships or unhealthy conversations. And I just want to put a special mention here. When we say unhealthy, what a lot of people think is sexual stuff. But when you start finding, I'm going to take it, that is a bad thing. Let me put that out there. But what I'm talking about, because usually that comes after. What starts off is when you start finding comfort in another person who's of the opposite sex who is not your counselor. And also, just to touch on that, if you are counseling someone who's married, it has to be a husband and wife counseling a husband and another wife. I can't counsel or go for counseling to a female person or leader or pastor without their husband being present. One of my favorite friends and pastors, Pastor Tafara, says that's a date. So no. So going back to my topic, when you start having unhealthy conversations, and when I was introspecting and thinking about these points, I actually felt going back to saying, when you find yourself doing what we used to do when we were dating before we got married with another person, because that included late night conversations, chats, meeting up over weekends, discussing life things, discussing about family issues, discussing about life issues with someone who is not your partner. That is a red flag. And I'm speaking to myself in this instance, that if I find myself doing that, already that is a red flag.
Yeah.
On the other side, if you find your partner doing that, that's also a red flag, and that's something that needs to be dealt with immediately, because that has all the trappings
Straight.
of ending up with your marriage in intensive care.
Tears.
Yeah. Oh, in tears. Correct. Yeah. So for me, that is one big one that I wanted to put out there.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, it's like this guy is my best friend. Like, there's just no guy that I'm just gonna sit with and have such an intense conversation talking about, I don't know. Like, if there is, it's a red flag, and that means I need to work on this relationship. If there is someone that I feel so comfortable with, especially of the opposite sex, to talk about my life, because the thing is, you don't see anything wrong with it, because you're not even necessarily bad mouthing your spouse.
Yep.
You're just talking about your
Life.
issues and life and things that have been hard for you. It should be with the person that I'm
Correct.
doing life with.
Yep.
And if the person I'm doing life with, I can't have those intense conversations about life, about, the things that I'm dealing with, then I need to work
is
on
another
this
red flag.
relationship. It's a red flag. I need to work on this relationship. Talking about the quality time stuff
Yep.
that we're talking about,
Correct.
where that means I need to spend quality time with this guy so that we can re-establish that friendship, because you're friends. You're always friends first. So I need to re-establish that friendship with this guy to get back to a place where if I'm feeling sad or having a bad day, then I go to talk to him
Speak to him.
first. I
Yeah.
don't, there's no one else. It's just him. So that's why that is a big red flag, because it speaks
It leads
of,
to a lot of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
it leads to a lot of things, and it speaks of the nature and the health of
Of our relationship.
our relationship.
Yeah, it's true.
And then, the other red flag would be not being able to apologize.
Ooh.
Or if there's any wrongdoing, not admitting that, okay, you know what, I messed up here. I think you can speak
Or taking criticism.
towards, like when you have, if you are very defensive, that's a red flag. Like you should always have an understanding that we're friends here, we're on the same team,
Yes.
no one is trying to attack me.
Correct.
And you should be open to someone giving you criticism.
Correct.
And if every time this person is trying to build you up or tell you or help you on how you can be better and how you can do things better, and you don't receive it, well, at some point he's going to shut down, because
Correct.
and so that is a red flag, because you know, there shouldn't be animosity
Yeah.
between the two of us. And so these are red flags because they speak to the health of this
relationship,
relationship. And a lot of people ignore these things because they may seem like they're small things, but it speaks of the health of this relationship.
Yeah.
And if this relationship is not healthy, these are the things that we're seeing, and these are the things that will determine how far this relationship is going to go, and how happy we are in the relationship.
Yeah.
So if I'm not able to take criticism from you, number one, and I am not able to apologize if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can trust you with me being vulnerable by apologizing, then that's a problem. Then that means we need to deal with it. There's
Correct.
an issue, whether it's
Correct.
my own personal
Yeah.
issue, it's my pride, whatever it is, or it's an us issue.
Correct.
But it's something that needs to be dealt with, because once again, small things become big
Bigger
things,
things,
and
yeah.
they become bigger things.
For me, I take this a step back even further, in that you touched on something very important. The premise of marriage is that we're a team. It's like we're participating in a sporting event,
Yeah.
and you are supposed to play a special in a specific role, and I'm supposed to play a special in a specific role. If in our execution of our strategy as a team, you make a mistake, just like people in the soccer teams in basketball do, they'll stop and have a huddle up and say, I think you did this wrong. If you do that and that and that, you could actually continue and we could progress with our strategy. That's how I see criticism. That's how I see being corrected.
Yeah.
That's how I see someone raising a concern to say, I think you did this wrong. I think you did this wrong. There is another topic behind that, in how the criticism and how the raising of a concern is done.
Yeah.
And that one goes back to your relationship with God. What is it that's getting your guard to be up? What is it that is making you abrasive when you're giving criticism? That's something that needs to be dealt with. So not taking criticism is a red flag. The nature and the way in which you also give criticism can also be a red flag. If you continuously see that you're giving someone positive criticism and positive affirmations, or correcting them, and they're not taking it, it's also a moment for introspection to say, how am I doing this? Am I doing it correctly? Am I doing it in a way that is acceptable? Am I sounding like a mother talking to their child, or am I talking to my partner as a partner? So those are some of the things that you just need to guard against. But if you in yourself, you're being given correction, or you're being given criticism, and the person doing so is doing it well and above board and with respect mutually, and you still don't take it, that is a red flag. You need to get it sorted.
Yeah, 100%. And I hope that you guys can pick up that these red flags that we're saying, sometimes they may seem like small, but they're really hard when you decide that you want to address them.
Yeah.
And that's when counseling comes in.
Correct.
Because some of the things you might not be able to address between the two of you, but you have to address them.
Yeah.
No matter how difficult they may seem, you have to address them. So if I have a problem with accepting criticism, I have to address why. Is it me? Or is it, like you said, the way that it is delivered to me? Either way, you have to get to the bottom of it, and it has to be corrected and it has to be fixed, because if it is not corrected, you're going to get into trouble. You're going to start throwing away that word that we don't want to talk about. So it's very important. I know, like, you could probably be watching and you're like, wow, I mean, it's all, nice and dandy for you to say those are the red flags and I see them, but where do I go from here?
Yeah.
You can't ignore them. You can't afford to ignore them, because the future of your marriage and your relationship depends on this.
They're core pillars of what makes a strong relationship and what makes a strong marriage. And these are not things that you can sweep under the carpet or kick the can down the road and say, somewhere, somehow it's going to resolve itself. These are the small things that have the trappings to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because it's continuous little things that end up being a heavy burden.
Yeah.
So especially with what you're saying around self-introspection as to why I am feeling this way when this person is speaking, why I am feeling this way when I'm being corrected. It goes far beyond the marriage. It goes back into how you were raised, what life experiences you had. And when it comes to such, the best you have is godly counselors.
Yeah.
And it has to be on both sides. It has to be individual counseling, where you come right with God on the basis of life that you lived before your partner, and then marriage counseling, where you now have this person that you've chosen to do life with, and every so often, I don't know, every 3 months or 6 months, whatever, you go and you sit in front of someone, you just talk, and you say what you are having issues with, what you're having troubles with, what you're doing correctly. Because counseling also just comes with a negative connotation, as if it's something that happens when things are breaking down.
No.
But counseling, I always like to liken it to servicing your car or servicing whatever asset that you have. You do it so that you prolong the life of whatever that you're trying to guard, or whatever that you're using. So for us in this instance, it's marriage, and we're trying to preserve our marriage and to make it last forever. We need to constantly go and speak and seek the word and seek experienced people that have walked life, that have gone through life storms and are still standing, to understand how they've managed to do it, but also get a moment to give that glory feedback, to say, guys, we are actually doing more things correctly. That's why we're still standing here, right? So it's not just the negative. And you also sometimes just need to have a marriage session with whoever, where you're just gloating, and like we were struggling with this, look at where we are now. We're struggling with this, look at where we are now. We're struggling with this, look at where we are now. The more we positively paint that, the more it is impactful in our lives.
Yeah. And I think also people need to award themselves some grace in understanding that if some of these things that we've mentioned in the red flags you are struggling with, trust me, number one, you're not the only one that's struggling. We came up with these things because
we walked through it.
Some of them we've walked through them, some of them we've seen them so often that we just have to talk about them. So award yourself some grace in saying that none of us came out the factory like this.
Correct.
None of us came out the factory perfect. If there's anyone who thinks that they don't need to work on who they are, they don't need to work on themselves, their personality, you are just fooling yourself. You are in a lot of trouble.
And it's dangerous delusion.
Yeah, so we are talking about these things because these are small things that you can work on so that they don't become big things. And your marriage can be serviced, it can be restored, it can be repaired before it gets to a place where there's no turning back. So allow yourself, trust me, these things are happening everywhere. A lot of the things we've experienced, we've seen, we're not talking about stuff that, if there's people that you see and they look so perfect, no one is perfect, and everyone is continuously working, choosing to work and improve themselves. And if you're making excuses, allowing yourself to be a victim of your circumstances is also not going to change the situation. So everything, and my husband always says this, that everything in life and everything that you do, especially marriage and parenting, is intentional. It has to be intentional. You can't just be like, okay, I'm a victim of circumstances. I was born like that. So, no. If you want to have a good marriage, a positive marriage, you want to enjoy, more importantly, you want to enjoy your marriage. You want to be happy with the person that you see every day. You really just want to be at peace. You want to get home. You don't want to be those people that just don't want to leave work because you don't want to go home. You want to be home and be happy because you know that you like the person that is at home when you get there. And how do you do this? It just doesn't fall in your lap. You have to put in the work. Where you see that the oil is leaking, you take it in for service.
That's a good one.
And you get it fixed so that moving forward, that part is fixed and you can enjoy and enjoy and enjoy. That's the journey of marriage. There is no one that came out perfect and just got married and they're the white picket fence and it's all pretty. No, because we all come from different backgrounds and we have different life experiences that have made us who we are today. And now we have to undo, redo, fix, correct things that, were not quite correct so that we can enjoy the gift of marriage that God has given us. So allow yourself some grace, and that allows you the freedom to get help, to get things fixed and corrected.
True.
So, any last words?
I think just continuously staying in the Word of God. Continuously. God's Word is so alive and active. It's got solutions. And seeking counseling, seeking people that have got experience, that have gone through this, that are still standing, that are godly for me. That is my parting advice. That you need to have those people that you're accountable to. And when you go there, have, like we do at work, have actionable goals that you need to work at. Have objectives that you come out of that marriage counseling with. Have a timeline to those objectives, and just go on and do marriage. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And two last things. Okay, I'm sure they're the last. But number one, you must create the marriage you want.
Oh yes.
Create the marriage you want. Simple. Create the marriage you want. What do you want? What do you need to put in to harvest what you want? Number one. Number two, marriage is a godly idea. It's not a worldly idea.
True.
The world has taken the godly idea and made it what they want it to be. But marriage has always been a God idea.
Correct.
So always take it back to God, because God loves marriage, and marriage is a God idea. And everything that is from God is good and perfect. Every good and perfect thing is from the Lord. So marriage is good and it is perfect. I think that's all we have for this episode. Until next
the next
time.
one.
Bye.
Thank you very much, guys.